Hi Kushal, how are you doing, brother?
Hello, Swapnik.
I'm doing very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good in health, but I have a doubt to ask you though.
Well, I would be happy to discuss on any doubt that you have on your mind.
Thank
Sure.
you. So I've been coming to these Discover Yourself sessions, and I find the topics very nice. And also I've started reading spiritual texts such as the Bhagavad Gita as it is, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And I'm really amazed at how great these spiritual texts are. They are very enlivening.
Okay, that is very encouraging to hear actually. Uh, if I would tell this to my friends in my office or maybe in general, they would be really inspired to read this once they know about your experience.
Thank you for your encouraging words, Kushal. In fact, to tell you further, I found them even more enlivening, entertaining, and enlightening than any mundane literature that I have read.
Oh, that's indeed a very nice point. I mean,
So here's the question I wanted to ask you. So, although I am so amazed by these spiritual texts, but yet sometimes I do get this doubt. They seem to be too good to be true. Couldn't it be the case that some nice people in the past came together and they created these stories for the betterment of mankind? Don't you think that could be the case?
well, you have brought up a very valid point. Uh, I won't even slightly doubt you or blame you for having this question. Given the modern kind of thought process that we have, the advancement of technology and kind of education system that we have, many of us would have a similar doubt in their mind.
Okay. Yes, and in fact, I have also heard somewhere that religion and spirituality is considered to be like an expired old medicine.
Oh yes, I have heard the same thing from a friend of mine. So which essentially means that all these spiritual texts were meant for maybe people in olden times who were uncivilized or who were ill-mannered. And since we have advanced a lot in technology today and we have become civilized, we do not need them anymore. That's what they mean.
Thank you for empathizing with my doubt.
Yeah, so let us begin with some food for thought process for all of us. So now you have gone through these spiritual texts, you have gone through Ramayana, you have gone through Bhagavad Gita as it is, and you can feel that the content is actually deep and profound. So, given that you have realized it yourself, what would you think about the people who have brought up this knowledge for us? Would they be having some ordinary intelligence or?
No, definitely not. I'm sure they are highly intelligent. They have immense intelligence, even more than the authors of today.
So that's a very valid point. I agree to it. If we consider the depth of the literature that they have left behind, which we can't even read in our whole lifetime, they cannot be people with an ordinary intelligence. So point number one is that they were really highly intelligent class of men. Now if we go further, what could be the intentions of them, to work so hard throughout their life, juggling up with their other duties, and still leaving us this knowledge? Would they be having some, bad intentions for the mankind to leave this?
No, definitely not. Given the fact that these spiritual texts that they have left behind for us, given the fact that they have such a profound positive effect on people's lives, I'm very sure these these great sages who left us with these spiritual texts must be genuine well-wishers of mankind.
Yeah, so I agree with your point. We can see there have been so many spiritual movements around us which have changed the lives of the people for good. They have left the habits, their bad habits, which could not have been left by any other, so-called processes. But by accepting the scriptures, they have felt the benefit. So the second point is that they were people of good well-wishing nature. They were genuine well-wishers of the humankind.
I agree.
Right. So that is our second point. Let us go further. Do you think their personal character would be something ordinary? What kind of character would they have in their personal lives if they have given us this kind of knowledge and this kind of scriptures? What could be their characters? Would it be some ordinary character or something, or would it be some character of exemplary nature?
Yeah, that's a very valid point. I'm pretty sure these great sages who have left these scriptures for us, they might be men of the highest character. In fact, the best men to have walked on the earth. Given the fact that even for someone to express some thought or a teaching in a lucid manner, it definitely indicates that they have deeply contemplated over it and lived by it. So I pretty much agree with the fact that they are men of highest character.
So from our discussion, we can agree to these 3 points, that the sages who have left this wealth of knowledge for us, for our benefit, they were men of high intelligence, they were well-wishers of the mankind, and they were high character, people of high character.
Wait a minute. Yes, I agree with these points. But where does this take us with regard to our original question?
So, can we imagine that anyone having these 3 attributes in their character would leave us with something which might be a mere fallacy, which might be myth, which they have expressed from their sincere hearts for helping us? Can it just be a big lie?
Yes, this sets me thinking. You've brought up a good point. So, yes, because they are men of high character and they are genuine well-wishers, whatever they are saying from their heart definitely cannot be a lie. And because they are men of high intelligence, I agree that what they are speaking is not just some wrong data to entertain us.
I really appreciate that you are accepting these points with an open mind.
Credit goes to you for pointing it out.
Yes, I'm really thankful to you for this. Well, I would also like to discuss one more point that we started with. There was an assumption behind this doubt, in fact. So the assumption was that these spiritual texts were valid in olden times when the people were so-called uncivilized and they didn't have the modern amenities that we have today, and they do not hold any value anymore.
I did indeed feel so. In fact, as I told you, I used to think, and I've even heard many others say, that these scriptures or any spiritual path is simply an expired old medicine.
Yeah, so let us consider this situation. Given the passage of time that we have and the advancement of technology, are we seeing the advancement of values in the personal character in human beings? And furthermore, if we go back to our childhood days, when we would visit maybe a small town or a small village where people were not well educated considering the today's times, where they people of loose character, were they uncivilized, or how would be the treatment that you would receive from them? Would it not be kind? Would it not be respectful?
Oh, definitely. I do remember having been even to small villages or towns, and the people definitely were not barbaric or uncivilized. They were men of great character, kind, gentle, and loving. I remember visiting relatives in small villages or towns. So again, yeah, I see the point you're trying to make. So technology doesn't necessarily make someone civilized. And on the other hand, lack of technology doesn't necessarily make someone barbaric or uncivilized. I see your points.
So,
Thank you.
Uh, I I really appreciate your understanding, and you have very quickly grabbed the essence that I wanted to bring out for these points of yours. And it's very good to enlighten the people in general about these things.
Thank you, Kushal. It was indeed nice hearing these points from you. This has definitely set me thinking, and I will think about these points.
So you were also discussing some Discover Yourself sessions.
Yes, I have been attending these sessions, and I'm sure you would also love to join them. In fact, since you have already been reading these spiritual texts, would you like to join?
Yeah, when is the next one happening?
It's happening today. We could go now.
Sure, I would love to join you.
Thank you. Come, let's go.
Welcome everyone for today's session. So what did you learn from the skit? It's a quiz. To test how awake are you. We'll do the technology shake actually. Right. This is our shake up. Let's see if it works now. Just a minute.
Initially it worked.
It did work?
Yeah, and then it was a login screen and then something happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so this week we will talk about Dharma. So last few weeks we've been talking about some of the topics from the Bhagavad Gita. So last week, of course, Swapnil did a great job, right?
Yes.
So any points that you remember from last week? No, you have to do a great job.
Inverted binary.
The inverted binary tree, yeah, that was the topic. So any points that you remember from last week? Yeah, the world is a reflection. Any other points That you remember?
Too many centers.
Yeah, right. So there are too many centers. Right. So it causes ripples and it causes conflicts, causes a disharmony. Of course, that's the nature of the world. There is contention, there is conflict. Why there is contention? Why there is conflict? Because there is no one center. There are so many centers, and because there are so many centers, there are so many circles, and they all collide with one another, and that causes conflict or uh, conflicts and dissensions actually. So, and each center represents, what does it represent? And why there are so many centers?
Because you always think you are the center for everything.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, it's me in the center, and that's what the false ego is. The false ego is perfect in giving us that illusion that I am the center of the universe, and that everything that I do. So that's why this the whole self-centeredness comes. Is that because of that me being in the center? But of course, very quickly, as you grow up, especially this is very strong when you're in youth, and you have this tendency, because adolescent, youth, this is where you feel like you'll be able to conquer the world, right? But then within a decade or the next decade or so, you will slowly realize the reality. The reality is very different. That we are limited, we have limitations, we have shortcomings, and that unless it's in your karma, I mean, of course, people are at different levels of power, but nobody can claim that they can have absolute power. Even the president of the even the president of the United States cannot claim that he has absolute power over everything and everybody. And here, because you can see, even if you look at how Trump actually became the president, and he was a pretty egoistic and pretty dominating guy, but he very soon realized that there's very little, he has very limited freedom. It's not that just because one becomes a president that he has unlimited freedom and then unlimited control. That's not the case. He has very limited freedom and control. Even as the leader of a powerful nation, one has very limited. So today we will just continue from where we left off last week. So we will talk about Dharma, and then we'll also connect with some important questions that were left from last session. What were some other questions? What is that?
There's a unique center from where every reflection came.
Yeah, so what is that center? What is? Yeah. Who's the center or what is the center? That's one of the important questions that we left off from last session. And then did you also discuss about we discussed about the material realm. Did you also discuss about there is another realm? What is that? Vaikon. Yeah, the spiritual realm. Of course, this world is classified as a inverted reflection. All right. Because there is a reflection, there are the conclusion is that the reality is also there somewhere. Right? So this material realm is considered to be a reflection, but because there is a reflection, the conclusion is that there is also reality somewhere, and the reality we can call it as spiritual realm. I don't know if you read, in fact, Krishna discusses in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives verses describing the other realm, the spiritual realm. Of course, as spirit souls, where do we belong to? as it's natural to understand that as spiritual entities, as spiritual beings, we actually belong to the spiritual realm. That's our natural home. It's by intuitively we can understand, right? But the other question is then what are we doing here? I mean, I'm sure this question was also discussed that does the Atma, the spiritual being, does it need a material body to survive? No. Does the material body need Atma to appear alive? Yes. So if the Atma doesn't need a material body to live, then why does the Atma has a material body in the first place? So these are some of the questions I'm sure you would have discussed in the last session, and we will try to answer it in this session. The question is, why do we have a material body? Of course, one answer for why we have a material body is because we can relate or live in this world. Because it's a material world, you need a material body. Right? So any condition you go to, you need a special kind of equipment or a special kind of adaptation so that you can live in a particular environment. If you want to go snorkeling, you have to have a certain apparatus so that you can actually adapt to that particular environment. So similarly, to adapt to this particular environment, we need a material body to interact here. But the Atma itself is not in need of a material body for its survival or for its existence, because it's spiritual and eternal nature. Any other thoughts before we move ahead? Okay. So what is Dharma? Dharma is, of course, there are many definitions of Dharma. I mean, loosely it's also translated as religion. But a very specific definition we will use for Dharma is something that is intrinsic nature of you, or intrinsic part of you, or a property of you that defines you, and that's inalienable from you. That's one of the, I would say, a correct definition of Dharma. So inalienable nature of you, or intrinsic part of you, that cannot be separated from you. So, what is the Dharma of sugar? Sweet. It's to be sweet. Of salt? Salty. Yeah. Now water? Tasteless. Okay, I mean we go beyond taste, the level of taste. Liquid? Yeah, form of liquid. And?
Neutral.
Huh?
Neutral.
Neutral. Adapt. Fluidity. Transparent.
Odorless, colorless.
Right. And it's also to quench thirst. So, yeah, I mean, but there are very defining characteristics of some of these elements, which is for the sweet, for the sugar it's sweet, and then for salt, of course, to be salty, and for water to be fluid, and to actually quench thirst. So these are its core nature. So that's one of the definitions. To define the core nature, the term that can be used for defining the core nature is Dharma. So what is the Dharma of Atma? Okay. Think in terms of function. Living, okay. Yeah. One of the attributes of Atma is it's eternal. So life is one of the attributes.
Activity.
Pure.
Huh?
Pure.
Pure. Okay. Yeah, those are all characteristics, but in terms of function,
To desire.
to desire something, okay. he said, Sanket said something.
Activity.
Activity. To be active. Okay? So, the answer is,
Karma, all those stuff.
Yeah, karma, yes. We're getting closer. So the dharma of the Atma or the soul is service, seva. And just like how the dharma of sugar is sweetness and salt is being salty, dharma of Atma is service. Because it goes beyond tennis service. But does everybody agree with that point? In fact, we all serve. Do you agree with that point? Yeah? We all do service and we all serve. How is that true? How is that correct?
For our families.
For our families. Okay.
Is that true? I just came from office.
Well, he's a bachelor, that's why he's talking.
Serving his boss.
Right. Serving his boss. Right.
That's what I'm
Right.
To every individual, it is not true, but to some extent, it is true. Not to every individual. That's
Service is, I think, whatever comes in our mind,
Yeah.
that's what we do, right? So basically, we are all serving our mind.
Right.
Every action is a service. It
Right.
affects some of the other person.
Yeah. I mean, some people just do it for themselves. Yeah, I mean, mostly yes. I mean, many of the categories can be categorized into that whatever we do, it is either for another person or a connected family member, and sometimes for ourselves also. So we all do activity and service, but where it's directed to, that can differ. So we all serve, but where that service is directed to depends from one situation to another. So a person may be serving his boss, a person may be serving his family, a person may be serving his manager, and a person may be serving his mind and senses, but we are all engaged in one activity or another, or one service or another, but where it's directed to depends on a particular situation and the particular conditioning of the person. So, for a normal human being, because I am in the center, everything that he is engaged in or actively serving is actually with me at the center. With me in the center. In fact, it's I, me, and mine. So, what are you most attached to in this world? Our body. Nice. Ourselves. The thing that we are most attached to in this world is our body. And from that attachment comes all the other attachments. So because I'm attached, the thing that I'm most attached to is this body, whatever is connected with the body, in terms of my family, in terms of my children, in terms of my parents, wife, then I become attached to all those things. And then you can go a little broader, and then I'm attached to my community. And then you go a little broader, I'm attached to my nationality. But all those things are coming from where? Me. All those things are coming from the egoistic platform of attachment to the body and with me in the center. And that's how our services are also generally defined. We may be serving, somebody may be very selfish and just be serving themselves. But then when one has a family, then it expands to become a little more selfless and think about others and serve others, and then it can go, and these it can go a little further out. But then ultimately the whole concept is based on with me being the center, with me or with the ego, my ego in the center. And that's why, of course, we discuss this. We have so many centers. Because everybody's ego or me is in the center, and there are so many circles, and then there are colliding circles which leads to dissension and conflicts. Of course, because this is the nature of this world, because there are so many centers. But then this is the nature of reality in the reflection. So what should be the nature of reality in reality? So what should be the nature of reality?
Harmony.
One center, exactly the opposite. So it should be one center and it should be all harmonious. So that should be the nature in the spiritual realm. So that will create harmony. So that will create harmony. So there's one center in the spiritual realm. So what is that center in the spiritual world? He hit the nail. Who said Paramatma? Huh? You said Paramatma. Yeah. You should have probably seen the slides before. Yes, that's correct answer. So the center is Paramatma. We'll discuss that, how that is so. And then we'll also try to answer the questions, where has this tendency to serve come from? And then why do the Atmas even exist? So to answer the first question, so what is the center in the spiritual world? The center in the spiritual world is Paramatma. So of course we talked about Paramatma a little bit, right? What do you remember about what we talked about? There are two kinds of Atmas we talked about. Yeah, Jivatma and Paramatma. And then we also described, give you an analogy about two birds. Do you remember that?
Observer.
So what do you remember?
Is observer and
Yeah, the Paramatma is the observer and also the permitter. Alright, observer and permitter. And the Jivatma actually goes from one tree to another and trying to enjoy the fruits, the different branches of the tree. Sometimes the fruit is bitter, sometimes the fruit is sweet. So this is the example that we saw before. So from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that just as Atma is a personality, Atma is a personality defined by Sat Chit and Ananda. Similarly, the Paramatma, so we have emotions, we have free will, we have some level of control. Of course, the Atma's characteristics are that we are eternal, we are blissful, and we are full of knowledge and awareness. So these are some of the characteristics. So Atma has all these attributes, and of course we are a person. We have a personality. And because we have all these attributes, we can also reflect the same. And the Paramatma has all these attributes to a greater degree. So the Paramatma is defined in the Bhagavad Gita as a person who has all these attributes to a much more greater degree than what Atma has. He has, much more influence and control and the exercise to execute his free will. So the comparison, another comparison that's given between Atma and Paramatma is like a drop of ocean, drop of water from an ocean to an ocean. So is the drop of water from an ocean and the ocean, are they same? The qualities are the same. The qualities are the same because the drop of water has the same, it's salty, it probably has the same properties as this huge volume of water in an ocean. The qualities are the same, but what about the quantity? What about the effect that it can create? They are not the same. They are not the same. So that is the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. So ocean, of course, can wipe out a city, of course, but a drop of water, and a drop of water can only have, a little bit of effect actually. But an ocean can have mighty effect. So this is the difference between the Atma and the Paramatma. And so you remember the picture from last week? So the conductor, who's the conductor then? Yeah, Paramatma. So because Paramatma and Krishna also says, defines how we are connected. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Amsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manashashtani Indriyani Prakritisthani Karshati. So here, of course, we have defined who we are. We have defined that we are spiritual entities. So Krishna goes further and says that yes, we are all eternal living entities, but we are also part and parcel, eternally. The living entities in this conditioned world, Mamai Amsha. What does Amsha mean? Part and parcel. Mamai Amsha Jiva Loke. And then Krishna says, Mamai Amsha, all the living entities in this world are eternally my part and parcels. Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Jiva Bhuta means all living entities. Mana Shashtani Indriyani. Mana means? What does Mana mean? Mind. Mana Shashtani Indriyani. Prakriti Sthani Karshati. Does anybody know what Karshati means?
Friction.
Struggling. So Krishna says that all the living entities are eternally my part and parcels, but unfortunately they are in this world struggling with the mind and the senses. Yeah, Manashashta means 6. So 6 senses, which includes the 5 senses and the mind. So that is, so Paramatma is in the center, and all the Jivatmas are connected to him because being the part and parcel of the supreme whole. So Paramatma is the supreme whole, and we are minute part and parcel of the supreme divine, the supreme soul. And being a part and parcel, what does a part do to a whole? It completes the whole. Okay. Yeah, to some extent, yeah.
That's its duty, right? Part of the body does its part, right?
Right. A part of the body, of course, the body can also survive without a part. I mean, without an important part. Right? For example, if there is, can the body survive without this finger? Yeah, the body can survive without the finger. But can the finger survive without the body? No. The vice versa is not true. But what does the finger do to the body?
Serves
It serves the body. It cooperates with the body. It functions in unison with the body. It works for the benefit of the body, right? So the finger functions for the benefit of the body, and then what it gets in return?
nutrition.
Yeah, it also gets regenerated. It gets energy from the body, right? So the finger, the finger says, no, I will go on strike. Why do I have to serve the mouth and the stomach and feed them food? Then what will happen to the part of the body? It'll go on, it will not be nourished. So similarly, when the part of the body is in harmony with the body and serves the body, naturally it also gets nourished. That's how the different parts work together to create a complete harmony, like that. So similarly, so when the conductor, the Paramatma in the center, and then he actually, does all signs and, gives direction as how the music has to be played. So when the direction is followed and there is complete harmony, there is a great symphony, there is a great orchestra. Right. But of course, then everybody has to be, all the Atma has to be in harmony with the Paramatma. So this is the situation in the spiritual realm. This is the condition in the spiritual realm where it's a perfect symphony and it's a perfect harmony where everybody cooperates with the Absolute Supreme. Now tell me a scenario when how this can go out of tune or out of harmony, or when can the orchestra collapse?
Not listening to conductor.
Not listening to?
Like not following the conductor.
Okay, not following the conductor.
Or the instrument is broken.
But what is okay? I mean, so not follow. Why you don't want to follow the conductor?
We cannot see directions.
Huh?
If we cannot see the directions.
Cannot see the directions. Okay. I mean, you are able to see the directions.
If I have
You have your own agenda.
Huh?
If you have your own
If you have your own
agenda.
agenda. If you have your own agenda, then you actually will, you may resist, cooperating with the conductor. Or, just highlighting, even heightening that, if you want to be the conductor. Why he should be the conductor? I can also be the conductor. Right? When there is some kind of dissension like that. So naturally, when there is envy, or when we want to hold something that hold the position of the conductor, then there will be some dissensions, and then naturally what will come out is some kind of resistance or non-cooperation or troublemaking and so on and so forth, and then that's what this harmony strikes. Anyway, we'll come to that point. You can remember this point. Right. Of course, we'll. So this is another. So we talked about Paramatma. Who's the center? It's Paramatma. Now, why do the Atma exist? For the second question, why do we have children? Why do people have children? People who are parents don't answer. especially if you're a teenager, the answer will be very different. Why do generally people have children? I mean, why do couples have children?
To maintain the name of the family.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. But that could be one part of the reason. But what is the prime reason?
To love and to get some kind of pleasure.
Right. To basically, to expand and to enjoy, right? The reason we have, couples have children is because by that expansion, the family grows, and then supposedly it also it's supposed to increase the happiness in that. All of you are very self-realized. The idea is that by expansion there will be more enjoyment, there will be more happiness. Alright? And because ultimately and the other point is also that we are all beings of service. So how does a mother express her love to child? By serving. Right? If the mother keeps saying I love you, but does nothing for the child. Right? People will think, what kind of love this is. So the other concept is love is expressed in terms of service. And the more pure the love is, the more selfless the service is, which is without any expectation in return. So the closest we can see in this world is a mother's love for her child, where she serves the child without any expectations day and night. So love is synonymous with not what we want to get or how we can gratify our own mind and senses. Love is synonymous with how it's beneficial for the other or for the beloved, or how service can be done. So there is this relationship between the Atma and the Paramatma. This kind of loving relationship, which is based on selfless service. This kind of relationships exist between the Atma and the Paramatma, and that's why there is a perfect harmony. This kind of loving relationships exist, and I'll come to that.
That harmony should not last too long, right? Kids don't listen.
Yeah, that's just an example. That's just an example. That's why it's a picture of a small baby. We don't show you a picture of, somebody, a teenager and a mother. So, this kind of loving relationship exists between the Atma and the Paramatma. But of course, so what term comes to your mind? What normal term comes to your mind when you hear the word Paramatma? God. Of course, the many ways, we can actually, of course, Paramatma is a term from the Bhagavad Gita. But generally the conception that reminds us hearing the word Paramatma is God. But of course, God is pretty vague. Now when you hear the word God, you get all kinds of images, right? And it's pretty vague. But we want to really define that, in a specified, in a defined way. So for that, we will just take a quick look at how do people connect with God? There are 4 ways which people connect with Paramatma or God. Primarily, the very base level is out of fear. So if I don't do this, then I lose, everything. So that's generally the tendency. Some people, or God will punish me. So one impetus how the Atma connects with Paramatma is through fear. But that's not a very mature level of that connection between the Jiva and the Paramatma. The other aspect by which we try to connect with the Paramatma or the Supreme is for benefit. You go to the temple and then you have a long list. And then, sometimes, it's confusing whether in a grocery shop or or in the temple. So, for benefit. So that's another motivation why people want to connect with God. So, but that's a little better than fear. It's prospect or benefit. Now, again, it's what's in it for me. It's not very, in a relation, people can actually deal with others also, not just between living entities. We all deal with each other on these levels. We deal with some people with fear, probably a boss, or there is we deal, with certain people at the level of prospect. But these kind of relationships, does it give any satisfaction? It doesn't give any satisfaction. Why doesn't give any satisfaction?
Selfishness.
Yeah, there is selfishness.
You can ask for more. After getting it, you'll ask for more.
You'll ask for more, okay.
It's temporary.
It's temporary.
It's also not satisfying because that's not the function of it. I'm forced to act in a certain way. I don't want to be, but I'm forced to act.
Right. Some of these things, it's based on force, and it's not based on love, which is the highest platform. So any relationship can be satisfying when it's on the platform of love. And again, we already defined love as synonymous to selfless service. So any relationship we have, when it's acted on that platform, then it's very satisfying. Otherwise, when it's only motivated by other things, then it's not as satisfying. And then it's based on duty. Duty is better than benefit and fear. But then again, there's something missing, which is love. Alright, so in fact, this is the, of course, love is the strongest force. When it's understood properly, as being selfless service is the strongest force. And so we have this loving relationship with the Paramatma, but we can actually connect with Paramatma at different levels. But the highest level with which we can connect with Paramatma is love. Right? Now, this is the highest level. Now, what is one characteristic of this level? It is selfless. Huh?
Both ways.
Okay, in both ways. What is one characteristic that's different than the other 3?
Non-material.
Not selfish.
Purity.
Purity. No,
We don't expect anything in return.
we don't expect anything in return. Okay.
It's very satisfying.
It's very satisfying. Thanks for repeating that. The others are somewhat forced, but this cannot be forced. So that's where the concept of free will comes. You cannot put a gun on somebody and say I love you. Then there is no meaning to that statement. Because the relationship at this level based on love means that it is a choice that both parties have made. It's a choice that you're voluntarily willing, you've taken, that you've voluntarily taken. It's not by force. So that's big thing here, which is it's not by force, but it's voluntary. And so having defined this, that this is the highest stage of relationship between even Atma and between Atma and the Paramatma. What is so who do you fall in love with generally? Or I should ask you, why do celebrities have many fans? Okay. Do you agree? Celebrities have many fans. Of course, it's voluntarily. They pour so much of, especially in the US, when there is a concert or when there is a rock star, or when there is, you hear people, screaming and then they just falling and then crying and fainting and, but so this kind of admiration, this kind of attraction, people can attract, and this kind of attraction is exhibited. Of course, because of that attraction, many these celebrities have a lot of following because they have something that's very attractive, and then that can attract, and people fall in love with them, right? So the reason why they fall in love with them is because they have some potencies. And like how a magnet, if there are particles, the magnet can attract these ion filings by its magnetic potency. So similarly, we become attracted to even the people of this world. We become attracted to the individual living entities who have some potency. Some potency in terms of what? Name a few. As he said, fame. Fame is one potency you can have. What other opulences, if a person holds, can he be attracted to? Good looks, beauty.
Nature.
What?
Nature. Kind nature.
Kind nature? Are you sure? I don't see people having kind nature, having a big following. Money, knowledge, intelligence, power.
Talent.
Dictator.
No, but this is out of voluntary, out of free will. Out of free will. So yeah, actually many of you have named, there are 6 qualities that the Vedas say that are opulences, that even if one is vested in 1 or 2 to even to some degree, then they become very attractive. So we named beauty, fame, knowledge, power, money, wealth, and then final one is renunciation. I would combine those two. Kindness. Yeah. If somebody is renunciate, that is also an opulence. If somebody exhibits that, then they become very attractive. So see that these are the 6 opulences that we all exhibit to one extent or the other, and some people exhibit this to varying degrees. And even if 1 or 2 of them are present in some person, then they become very attractive to the whole world. But unfortunately, all these opulences, even though some people can have some of them, they are all temporary. A person cannot hold on to these opulences forever. And he cannot have, some people can have some power, Some people can have some beauty, but they cannot hold it on forever. They cannot be everlastingly beautiful. They cannot be all powerful. It all is there in some degrees, but then that is also taken away after some time. Now, Paramatma is defined in the Vedas as somebody who has all these six opulences in full, and which is who has all these six opulences in full, and it's never taken away from the Supreme. So Paramatma is someone who possesses all these six opulences in full. This beauty, strength, knowledge, fame, wealth, and renunciation. And this, so when these all six opulences are in full, that personality becomes all attractive. And the Sanskrit name for that, for all attractiveness is Krishna. So, of course, the God can have many names, but one of the names of the all attractive aspect of the absolute, supreme absolute in Sanskrit is called as Krishna. And of course, there are many names of God, and throughout many religions there are many names. Of course, there's Krishna, Rama, and then of course Hindus, and then there is Allah, the Islamic world, and then there is Christ in the Christian world. But very specifically, the name Krishna is defined as all attractive. All attractive means he is possessing the six opulences in full. So this is getting more. So Paramatma is a general definition. Now we are getting more specific into definition of the Supreme Absolute. This is Krishna. Of course, there are many questions. There are some questions that can be raised, right? What about the other, gods that we hear about, and of course that's another topic by itself. But just to give you a brief idea, so in a country, how many president or prime ministers are there? One. And how many ministers are there? Many. And each minister handles specific portfolio. Some departments. Can you name some of the departments? Health, finance, defense, water, power, sanitation, home ministry, education. Yeah, there's so many departments. There's one prime minister under whom everybody is authorized to run the affairs of the country. So similarly, how there is many departments in a country, similarly there are many universal departments in the cosmic, on the cosmos. So there is a department of water, which is handled by a person, a ministry in a country. So there is department of rain. There is department of power or electricity, and then there is similarly in a cosmic manifestation there is department of heat and light. So similarly, however we can see there are different departments which are managed by different people empowered by the one single prime minister or the president. So similarly, there are many managers of this universe who actually carry out and in charge of different departments in the cosmic arrangement of things. So who's heading the department of rain? Indra. That's right. And department of air and air quality? Vayu. So there are different. Um, there are different. What we call as devatas or demigods. They are not God. They are not the supreme absolute truth, but they are empowered caretakers of different departments of the universal affairs. So, like Indra, Vayu, Varuna. Do you know what Varuna manages?
Rain.
Ocean. He manages the department of ocean. So there are different devatas or empowered beings who actually manage the different affairs of this universe. But then there is only one prime minister or one president. Yeah.
Could there be an argument that Prime Minister exists because of the population? And I mean, just playing a devil's advocate.
Oh, it's okay. Because of the population.
Yeah.
Well,
and because Prime Minister exists because people think and they choose. In this case, how you would set up an analogy?
well,
Yeah.
analogies are analogies, so not every piece of the analogy has to fit back to explain the original logic. Yeah, so it's a different scenario.
King and that scenario fits. No one chooses a king.
Right. Right. So just to give an idea of how the universal affair is set up. So there's, according to the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas, there's one supreme absolute truth. There are many empowered agents under the supreme absolute truth who are carrying out the different affairs of the material universe. And that includes Brahma as well. Do you know where is Lord Brahma born out of? I mean, he's sitting on a lotus, but do you know where the lotus is coming from? Anybody from South India?
From Lord Vishnu?
You visited the temples in Kerala?
Yeah, Padmanabha Temple.
Padmanabha Temple? If you see the picture, Lord Brahma is born out of from the navel of Vishnu. And Brahma is considered to be the engineer of this cosmos. But he is actually born from the navel of Vishnu. In fact, when Brahma is born, it's totally dark actually, and he doesn't know where he is sitting, what he is supposed to do. And then he hears the word tapa, and then he performs tapasya for many thousands of years. Then he is enlightened actually, he becomes enlightened. And then he sees Vishnu lying on the causal ocean from where the lotus has sprouted, and he's sitting on the lotus. So he didn't even know what is his source. So he was in that state, and then because he's born out of the lotus, and then everything is pitch dark, and then he sees Vishnu lying on the causal ocean, and of course this needs a separate session. But you can think about all these questions. Generally, the understanding, especially the conventional understanding in India, is that all gods are equal. But the scriptural direction, the message from the Bhagavad Gita is very different. It's very different. Any comments on that, or we can move ahead?
So, I have a question. So, in your previous slide, you were showing that there is a Paramatma and most of the Atmas are related to it, like they are in complete harmony.
Right.
But in the spiritual realm, right? But in the reality, it's so hard for everyone to connect it to Paramatma. Is it because of the reflection?
In the material world, yeah, in the material world it's very difficult because of the ego. Because we have forgotten our own identity, and we also forgotten our connection with the Supreme Lord, Krishna. So right now we have forgotten all those things. And why we have forgotten, that's the next thing. So why we are in this material world instead of in the spiritual realm? Why we have forgotten that connection? and going through the cycle of birth and death. So those are the those are the questions we'll answer in the next few slides. So the reason why we are here, the reason why we have forgotten our connection is, so how does everybody act in this world? Everybody acts as the, huh? Everybody acts, what is the platform they act on? Egoistic platform or? Yeah, they act on the ego platform. They act on the platform of ego, which is me in the center. So if you see, everybody in this world acts the same way, that being the master or being the center. Right? So when the Atma wants to, when we want to play God, or when we want to be the conductor, or when we want to be the center, then we are given this option of reflection. So when, let's say another example given is, let's say the president is there, and then the president has a child. Now the child, wants to act as a president, right? Now can the child act as a president? No, it doesn't have the capacity to act as a president. No, but it's adamant, and it wants to act as a president. So what does the father do? Play some. Yeah, that's a good point. Play some skit in which the child thinks that he or she is the president and acts it out. Or there is a sandbox castle which is created, or a toy castle which is created, and then the child can now act as the president of the toy castle. Because the child is not fit to be president of the world, the world in reality, which is itself an illusion. But the child can actually act as a president for a toy world, right? So similarly, the moment Atma decides, when we want to play God, when we want to play the Supreme, then this is a sandbox castle which is given to us to try out our options. So that's why you see in this world, everybody wants to become the master. Everybody plays God. Everybody wants to be in the center. It's coming from our original desire to imitate God. So when we want to imitate God, then we are given this virtual reality to try to become God, so that we can play it out and we can try our best to become God. But then, after some time, we realize that this is not a very good option. And the point is also that we can never become the Supreme. The Supreme will remain as the Supreme, and we, as constitutionally, will always remain as his part and parcel. We can never become the Supreme. Yeah, you have a question.
Why would the Atma want to play the Paramatma in the first place?
Right. So that's where the free will is there. So the Atma wants to, because it has the free will, it can make a choice of trying to play God. The tendency is there. To give you another example, So this is also given in the example of Ramayana, where, of course, Mother Sita is Divine Mother. So, but just to give you an analogy, so Mother, Sita is there with Lord Ram in the forest. So the Acharyas explain that we can come, of course, Mother Sita is not Jivatma. There's a distinction there. But then they compare that to Jivatma. The Jiva is very happy in the association of the Lord. But then there is, there comes a deer. Right? The deer comes, and then when the living entity wants to enjoy independent of the Supreme. So Mother Sita she desired to enjoy the golden deer. So when the living entity wants to enjoy independent of the Supreme, then Ravana, he comes under the clutches of Ravana. Now what does Ravana represent? Ravana represents the mind, and he has 10 heads, right? So that represents the 10 senses. The 5 knowledge acquiring senses and the 5 working senses. And Ravana himself represents the mind and the 10 senses. So when we desire to enjoy independent of the Supreme, then we come under the clutches of the Ravana-like mind and the senses. And then ultimately we get caught up in this whole, we get entangled materially, and then we are put in Lanka, and then the mind and the senses are there to harass us, basically. But then one who is sincere, then the messenger comes in the form of Guru. So that's Hanuman. So anyway, that's the whole, it shows how a living entity, when it actually desires to lord it over this material nature or wants to enjoy independent of the Supreme, then this option is given. It's like, you want to, so let's say you want to, you want to be a shooter, and then go and you really want to, you're a normal human being, but you want to become a shooter and then go and shoot everyone and everybody on the street. What do? If you have that taste, you have the tendency, of course, nowadays people do that really, but then, of course, there are serious repercussions for that. But generally what people do, if they have a taste like that, what do they do? Yeah, but you cannot really shoot other, real video game. They actually get into, if they want to be something that they are not, then they get into virtual reality. And then they try to portray as somebody that they are not, and then try to satisfy that desire, and of course, it's not so satisfying, and then after some time they get tired and then they switch it off. But so similarly, this world is a virtual reality. It's a virtual reality where you can exercise all your unholy desires, all your other desires other than the pure desire of service. So when we have a desire to enjoy independent of the Supreme, then we are given this virtual reality. Yeah.
The tendency to be master, does it come from, since we are the part and parcel of original master?
Yeah, that's correct. The tendency to lord it over the material nature or try to control the material nature comes from the Supreme.
So similar.
But we cannot. That's a difference.
So a similar question to this both too. So in original state, Atma knows everything, right? And there is a selfless love. Still, there is a tendency of envy.
Tendency.
Free will.
Yeah, there is a free will. So there is free will.
If you know everything, like you know what's true and what's.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I'm not getting.
Well, the tendency is there.
Once you go, it's difficult to come back.
The tendency to lord it over the material nature is there.
It's like playing
I mean, it's like this, you know. You've seen. I'm sure all of you have seen cricket matches, right? How many of you are good players? Okay, let's say you're seeing a sport in which you're very good at, right? Because very good at, and then the player actually plays, you know, a bad shot. What do you think?
He could have done that or that.
Yeah, he could have done that or that, right? And then extending that, you also think if I was there, I would play the shot like this. Right? Right? You think like
But
that,
that's
right?
illusion, right? That's not knowledge.
No, that's correct. But the tendency is there. You know, the tendency is, you know, you keep doing that. Think about it. If you just keep, let's say there's a movie which is running for 1 week,
Yeah.
and then you're in the theater, right? At some point you'll become part of the movie, right? You'll become a character in the movie, and then you'll be crying, and then you'll feel very connected with some people, and then you'll feel very connected, and then nothing is happening to you, but then you're crying, you're laughing, you know, you really get in part of that story, and of course the whole thing is illusion, right? So the jiva has the fallacy, because we are not infallible. Only Krishna, the Supreme, is infallible. We are fallible. We have a tendency to get sucked into that illusion.
But then I thought material nature was created. It wasn't already there.
It's always there. It's always there. So we can get sucked into that illusion, and then we can say, and ultimately when we think about, oh, I can, if I was there, I could have played better. All these things, comes with the controlling mentality to control and mentality to dominate. So when the jiva gets these tendencies, then the material world is an option that you can try out.
So that being said, could you relate that to, like CEOs today,
Right.
or like, shareholders, people who sort of have the tendency to want to control bigger organizations, more people in their lives.
Right.
So is that sort of the link?
Well, the tendency to control is there everywhere. Some people get a lot more facility to take power and control. Some people get less. But the tendency to control is always there. So playing God means playing as the controller, enjoyer and the proprietor. So trying to imitate God means, so that's why we do in this world. We come into this world trying to do these three things. Try to control things, trying to own things, and then trying to enjoy. Independent of God, independent of the Supreme, independent of Krishna. So this is what playing God means. So for the Jivatmas who wants to exercise these things, the material world is an option.
So what's this?
Virtual reality, it's a virtual reality. So we are playing a game. It's a virtual reality. It's a game.
So this sounds more like a...
Of course, there's a game here also, that's virtual reality inside virtual reality. Illusion within illusion. But this is a game, and we are playing a game, and our points are the karma. Like exactly how a game is designed. You collect all these points, and then you get a new gun, like that. So that is karma. That's the concept of karma. So you get better and better facilities, you get better and better weapons, and all these things. So this is a virtual reality that's going on.
So with exploding population, does it mean people are getting impatient of that?
With exploding population means there are many universes like this. So there are as many universes as there are mustard seeds in a bag of mustard. Universes.
Planets. So there are
Not planets, universes.
There are also other living organisms and plants and living entities.
So that's what his question was, like why more people are coming.
No, I'm just saying within this planet also there are a lot of plants which might, there is a living entity which might balance it.
And there are multiple universes also. So there can be, yeah.
So what's the solution?
Right. So the solution is to actually understand that this is a virtual reality and come back to our original constitutional position and understand our true identity and be able to connect with the Supreme Divine. That is the, reversing this whole. So we have to come out of the virtual reality. We have to come out of this game. That will be covered in the next 2-3 sessions.
So then
how we do that?
Probably we were not happy. That's why we came here. We are not happy here too. So
well, so this is it's an attitude adjustment. We had an attitude problem with Krishna. So right, when there is competition, when there is competitiveness, there is people show attitudes. Right? So we had an attitude problem with Krishna. Krishna is like, you cannot compete with me. No, I can become God.
If you are given this chance to go and play God, that's your Dharma to do that. And how are we supposed to know that that's not actual thing to do?
Yeah, that's what we are doing. We are trying. The question is, how successful are we? And Krishna has given all freedom because when there's a tendency to play God, Krishna, because he loves us, he doesn't force and tell us, no, you cannot, try to become God, or you cannot. So because we have the tendency, we want to play God, Krishna, and for playing God, we have to forget who we are. Because if we have the knowledge that we are part and parcel of the divine, then we can never play God. So that's why we forget our own identity, and then the false ego gives us a false identity. A false identity that I am the center, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. Now I can play God. Okay, you want to play God? Okay, you can become this character in this virtual game, and the character will be your false identity, your false ego, and you can try to play God and try as much as you want to satisfy the desire of wanting to be God by having many. So there are 8.4 million species characters. So you can choose anything from this video game, and you try to play God. But ultimately everything will fall short because we cannot become God. Because we are not. We are part and parcel of God, and that is the ultimate thing we can get to is that we are Jivatmas, or part and parcel of God. That is the highest thing we can get to. That is our highest potential.
So in this virtual reality, how would, as you mentioned, there are 8.4 million characters we can try. So what is the special position that can be given to humans?
You have better guns. No, but the special, we talked about this, right? What is the special position of human beings?
Mind.
Intelligence. We have the discriminating faculty. So this faculty is given to these set of characters in the game.
Also, there is a sophistication provided to understand it's ultimately a frustrating game.
Right. So Krishna says, the Bhagavad Gita, Ichcha Dvesha Samatena Dvanda Mohina Bharata Sarva Bhutani Samoham Sarge Yanti Parantapa. Was kind of Bharata, or conqueror of foe, all living entities are born into delusion. Delusion is a stronger word of illusion. Bewildered by the dualities arisen from desire and hate. So when there is desire, there is naturally hate. There are two sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. So when there is desire to imitate or play God, there is naturally envy towards the person who is God. So that's why because the spiritual world cannot accommodate disharmony, we are given this material realm, this reflection, this virtual reality, where the playing out can happen, and that's why there is also disharmony, because everybody is now trying to play God. Everybody here has come here to actually try to play God. So because everybody here is trying to play God,
we have something in common.
and that's what you see in this world. Everybody wants to be enjoyer, wants to be the master, wants to be the center, because they are all trying to play God. It's the same tendency. We are all here with the same disease, wanting to play God. And the first step is realizing understanding the knowledge that I am not God. I am not the Supreme.
So if this is the case, why Lord Rama and all born in this material world? If they also were the God and they came to material world. Right? So if you are saying that because if they cannot be a God,
that's again service, right?
So what your question is? Why did they come?
yes, why did they come? And if we are saying that in material world nobody can be God, then why Rama came and
No, I mean it's like if the king can come into a prison house, the king can get into a correction facility. So the officer can come into a correction facility, and he can actually do the things that he wants to do. That doesn't mean that he is part of the correction facility. Is that a parole officer can come into a jail? Doesn't mean that he is part of the jail.
He didn't come here to play as God. He came here to serve humans and also spread knowledge.
Right.
So to balance out the negatives and to
So the Supreme comes at his own will, and he comes to actually attract us and give us the information required to actually bring us back to him. Yeah. So he communicates with us, the Supreme communicates, so that's why Krishna descended to actually attract all of us, to give the message of the Bhagavad Gita, to actually invite us back to our real home. Even though we have come here, but of course it's not like, like how Christians say you eternally burn in hell. It's not like that. I mean, as I said before, we had an attitude problem with Krishna. So for whoever has, so there has to be a correction. So this is a correction facility. So when the correction, happens, and then the attitude is adjusted, then Krishna comes back, and he invites us back to our original home.
That's why accompanies us as Paramatma to guide us, or
right. So he accompanies us. So of course, the Supreme and all there is a spiritual realm where the Supreme resides eternally with all his part and parcels. But he also expands us the Paramatma, and he accompanies us in our heart, like the two birds. He accompanies us and as a witness and as a permitter. And then he waits for us to turn back to him, because we are so busy externally trying to play, trying to be the enjoyer, the controller, that we forget to see him and seek his direction. But he's waiting in the heart, he accompanies us to turn towards him.
One more question. So, if the king doesn't belong to the he can come to the correction facility, but why does he play prisoner, and why does he act like a, why does he take birth like a human? Of course, Krishna's birth was human himself, and he was not.
Well,
why does he act like prisoner? Why doesn't he have the same?
Well, I mean, he breaks the laws all the time. Especially when Krishna appeared, he lifted Govardhan hill. He swirled Kasara. He killed so many demons. So all the demons who were sent by Kamsa to kill Krishna, they had a one-way ticket actually. They entered Mathura and Vrindavan and they never went back actually. So Krishna did miraculous things as a child. He lifted Govardhan hill with his pinky. and then so many wonderful things Krishna did actually. I mean, he broke all the laws. I mean, he did what he wanted basically. He practically, there was no limitation. Krishna was not limited at all.
But I think
He did what he wanted.
still they behave, just to set an example, right?
Well, still, to the human society.
Yeah.
So Krishna's instructions has to be followed. His example is not to be followed. Because Krishna is independent. He's a supreme. He can do whatever he wants. It's like, the police, the state, which governs the state law, they can come, you'll be driving on your left, right? On your right. So you're driving on your right. When the police come, they can put cones. Then they say, now you drive, on your left. They can change the whole thing. On the same road which you are driving right, now you're driving on your left. The police can come and put the cones and change the whole thing. Because they have the law in their hands. Similarly, the lawmaker, the supreme, who's the designer of the law of this game, who's the designer of the law of karma, when he comes in, he just does whatever he wants and changes laws and doesn't have to adhere to the laws of karma or the material nature. Because he's the designer of the game.
So regarding your point, why he has to do things as a human, he could actually just by his will perform anything, but yet he does it as a human so that we can revive our love for him.
Right. So it's attractive.
Yeah.
It's attractive. I mean, how many?
But in other forms, he has not done that too. Like he appears as Narasimha, breaks all the law.
Right.
Appearing.
But how much you can? So that's another thing. Like the supreme, of course, you've seen, right, in the Mahabharata, Krishna shows the universal form to Arjuna. But how many of us can relate to it? I mean, we can understand it's majestic, right? But we cannot have a loving dealing. You cannot go and put your hand on Ashingade. Hello, buddy. So it's a majestic form. So the Supreme has many forms. Some of the forms are majestic, some of the forms are sweet. Because Krishna is all attractive, Krishna's form is sweet. Krishna has both majestic form as a king of Dwarka and also sweet form as the child of Mother Yashoda.
Okay, I'm trying to make sense of this from a materialistic point of view.
But you cannot make sense of it.
I have a conflicting God in my head, okay?
Yeah.
So we are trying to play God, and we are always trying to control things. We're trying to control people. Every conversation, every so what I'm looking for, when we meet someone or interaction, right? We're trying to control the outcome of it.
Right.
Let's say the next day the weather is not how I want it to be. I'm upset, but I can't control that. But every interaction, everyone I meet with, I'm not just saying for myself. I've seen this with every single person I meet. We're trying to control the outcome of it.
Right.
It's just a small scale because it comes from the desire within me that I want things to go so and so.
Right.
So if I want to give that all up, are you saying just let things be? Are you saying let it be? That's what my initial question was.
That's a very good question actually. It's just that we have to. It's not about giving it up, rather it's purifying it. So what is the motive? What is the motive in trying to do all these things? It's not the action that it's more than action. It's what your intent is. So intent is what driving the action. So what is the intent that's driving the action? So as we revive our original nature through the process of yoga, especially bhakti yoga and mantra meditation, then our base motives, our selfish motives gets purified. When our motives becomes pure, because that is our original state, and as we get closer to our original state, our motives becomes pure, and you can do the same thing, but your motive will be different.
But to the other person, it could be subjective.
That's fine, but that's not up to you. How other person reacts, but you are in your space, you are in your true, Krishna says one can see the true self by the pure mind. So you can be situated in your true self and you can act as the part and parcel of the Supreme, the instrument of the Divine. And when you're situated in that original state, then your motive is pure. Then whatever actions come out of it is going to be good, beneficial for you and beneficial for everyone. Whether somebody accepts it or not, that's a different thing. And you should not expect that also. Again, expecting that is playing God. That everybody has to listen to me and accept me, that's playing God.
Right. Yeah.
Just to add, Arjuna did the same thing. He did the fighting, but with a different consciousness.
Right. Like how our Natwar, he cooks every week. Because everybody cooks in the whole world.
Yeah.
But his cooking is with the activity is a different consciousness. And today, of course, what is that?
Tarang Prabhu and Ma.
Oh, Tarang Prabhu and Mataji also. Yeah. And today, of course, what's her name? Lily. Right, she cooked for all of us. So, and hers.
Seema.
And Seema. Thank you.
Sweet by Jyoti.
Oh, thank you. So, all of us do a lot of activities, but then depends on what consciousness we are in. And ultimately, the whole process of yoga is to revive this original consciousness. So, our original consciousness is what is called as Krishna consciousness, or the consciousness of where we understand that we are the part and parcel of the Supreme Being, and then we act in harmony with His desires. We act cooperating with Him. That is our original position. So the same activity can be done in many different consciousness. So when we do in this consciousness, then it becomes bhakti. But when we do in consciousness of wanting to enjoy, wanting to control, when we do any activity, wanting to dominate, wanting to control, and with self-centeredness, then it becomes egoistic activity. So any other? We have some more slides, but we can stop here. Any other comments or questions? So all of you have become a new person. Of course, it's not an overnight change. This is just the knowledge part of it. It's a journey. It's a journey. We have to realize these concepts. These concepts can be realized when we have practices in place. And part of the practice is mantra meditation. So mantra meditation helps us to connect, because we have lost that connection with the Supreme. We have lost, we've forgotten our true identity, who we are. We have forgotten our connection. So we have forgotten three things. We have forgotten who we are. We've forgotten who's the Supreme Being, and we have forgotten the connection, our connection with Him. So we have forgotten these three things. To revive these three things, there's a simple process of mantra meditation, which can revive all these things gradually. And clear the mind of all the impurities of being the controller, enjoyer, and trying to play God. It will clear the mind of all these impurities, and then we can see the true self by the pure mind. So we'll stop here and we'll do some kirtan for 5 minutes.
Kirtan we did in the beginning, so
Okay, that's
would you
okay.
prefer doing japa and stuff?
I see. What do you want to do? There are 3 options. You want to take